Hell yeah, fellas. Are we ready?
Yes, I think we're ready.
It's time for episode 81 of Whatchu Spinnin.
Did you say 81?
81. Randy Moss when he played for the Pats. The best time. We're not going to talk about the other 81 that played for New England. But anyway, I'm Dorian. That's Jake. That's Matt. We are here in my crib today to talk about some spooky albums. Peep the albums on the wall. You'll kind of see where we're going with this. But yeah, how you boys doing?
Well, doing well.
Good, man.
Hell yeah. We ready? We excited?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Excited. Good
Excellent.
week of music.
Oh, yeah. Let's touch on that a little bit.
I saw that you got that new Aphex Twin album. How's
Yes.
that?
I have not, haven't gotten a chance to spin it yet tonight. That's the move tonight.
Nice.
But 4 discs.
Oh, shit.
I thought you got that in Portland for some reason. No. Okay.
No, I got
I don't know why I thought
got some other stuff.
So they added a lot to it if it's two more discs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's 180 gram, but it's like the bio vinyl and stuff came with a cool ass poster that like I'll have to show it to you guys at some point, but it's one side, it's the percentage, like it's like various percentages of the song on the album. It's like this song is 0.5% of the album in entirety, but it's this percentage of its side of the disc. Like super crazy.
Wow.
And like until it's super weird, and then the backside is like a weird little art piece about it. But so the packaging was super cool. It's it's like thick, so it's not shoving 4 records into a tiny sleeve like companies tend to do. It's a really I pulled out the packaging yesterday to look at it. I was like, this is incredible, but haven't spun it yet. I've listened to it though, the new version of the album. It's pretty good.
That must be fucking heavy, dude.
Yeah.
Miles is 3 discs, so like they have one on each side and then one in the middle.
Oh wow.
It's like a tri, I guess.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
a tri, but it has like 3 spots in it.
Yeah, I've got Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye is like that.
Yeah, so is the last Depeche Mode album.
Fuck yeah. I love I love it when things are more than 2 discs for some reason.
Yeah, extra packaging.
When it's a bigger pain in the ass to spin, I'm like, hell yeah. but hell yeah. Elucid also, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, that Revelator album is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it does. I was listening to it and I was like, Jake might have a point. I was like, Elucid is the man. I was like,
Elucid's wild, bro.
I was
He's
kind of
way up
already.
there.
I was kind of already in that camp, but yeah, it's so weird and experimental, even for him. I feel like there's not a lot. I don't even know if there is a song that has like a classic,
I kept waiting for that.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, it's like his Diabetic Test Strips was kind of influenced onto this album too. So
Yeah.
he probably did some production on there, brought a little to this album.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But it is good.
I think it is produced by him, right? He produced it, a lot of it.
I think so.
Yeah.
It
sounds like it because it's kind of wacko sometimes.
Yeah, it's a little raw.
But
Yeah.
And it made me go back and listen to because I was already getting into like Nostrum Grocers, but then I was like, let me listen to like see where the dots are to lead to that album coming out, and I was like, okay, I can kind of see it happening. But then I just happened to put on like Diabetic Test Strips, and I was like, oh no, that's where it came. There it is. I was like, there's the exact connection. But no, I actually dig it. I kind of like it it's kind of like Aethiopes for Billy Woods. Like you're not gonna get into this album for to listen to like a classic hip hop beat.
Sure.
You're gonna
from track 1 on that, you're like, what's going on? Yeah.
right, and then but it's like Elucid's killing it vocally, like lyrically and stuff. So it kind of reminded me of that a lot. I was like, oh, this is I feel the same way about Revelator as I do Aethiopes in a sense. But yeah, I fucking love it so far.
it's good. Yeah, good listen.
What else you guys been listening to? Or re-listening to? Any bands?
New Machine Girl came out.
Okay.
The album finally.
On the night of my birthday. It came out. It's got vocals on like the entire thing, and so it's the guy because that's the producer and the drummer, right? The guy that does production is doing vocals now for him, and so it's I'm super excited for that show because it's gonna be fucking fun regardless.
So cool.
But yeah, it's like fucking vocal over Machine Girl beats, so it's just
Nice.
When you listen to, you're like, oh yeah, this is like the only vocals that you could put over this. Like it's angry. It was Mario getting the star in Mario Kart, but now it's angry version of that, and I'm like, yeah,
It's Wario now, baby.
exactly.
The cover's different. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so MG
Nice.
Ultra, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn good. I suggest listening to it at least. If you are digging Revelator, go ahead and just fucking listen to MG Ultra. Like if you're already in the weird stuff,
Right, go
might
for
as
that
well.
too.
Yeah.
But other than that, no,
I saw Bon Iver drop the EP. I haven't heard it yet, but
I did see that too.
me either.
it's like 3 songs or something. I have been kind of listening to more Ka lately.
Just what album?
Well, what is it? It's like the second or third one that came out after Honor Kills the Samurai.
Because that's one of my favorites. That
Oh,
one.
dude, that
Yeah,
album's so good. That album's so fucking good. He's a really good producer, actually. He was a really good producer and like rapper. It's crazy.
And
yeah.
not a lot of people know about him. You know, I didn't know about him, so it's sad that he left so soon. But
Yeah.
he left his mark. Go listen to his discography. You'll see it. and hear
Yeah. Honor Kills the Samurai is really good. And that the one that he did with
It's Orpheus or
Sirens on that is good, but that Animos produced it. That album is good. Forget what it's called, but I think I've shown you it. It's the one with like the Greek sculptures or whatever.
oh yeah.
But yeah, that album, him and Animos, it was good.
Hell yeah. What about you? Anything?
I dove back into a band that I saw live with Ministry, Frontline Assembly, just because they have like a techno-ish metal kind of sound.
Gotcha.
So, Echo Genetic is the album.
Okay.
Very cool. Lots of hit songs on there that you've probably heard before, but
Okay.
they got a cool sound. It's nice and loud and proud.
Hell yeah, we love all that. Yeah, I don't think I've been. Oh, I mean, we'll get into it, but I went into your album. I went into Marilyn Manson a little bit.
Yeah?
I went back down. If we're talking about re-listening to anything, yeah, this morning in particular, I was
Okay.
like, I think after I listened to all the albums for the first time, I was like, all right, Antichrist Superstar, here we go,
Yep.
right into that. But yeah, other than that, just the stuff that we've been doing this week and the stuff that's new that came out, because I was really looking forward to that. Rez dropped an EP also, a little 4-track, pretty good stuff as well. So yeah, I was like,
Nice.
both of those dropped on at 9 p.m. on my birthday, so I was just happy as a
yeah.
pig in shit. I was like, there we go.
Dude, I feel like at the end of the year is like when a lot more
Oh yeah,
albums start coming out. I don't know why. I don't know why. Like also Tyler the Creator's coming out with a new album, I think, next week.
ooh,
Just they just sneak up on you out
Yeah.
of nowhere all the time.
wonderful. That'll be fun. That'll be a fun listen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Shall we dive into
do it.
today's stuff? Let's do it. It's Whatchu Spinnin', episode 81. Thanks for coming by.
Spotify and stuff.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Fucking clip it. Anyway, it's Whatchu Spinnin', episode 81. We are here ready to kick today's festivities off. And speaking of festivities, we're going to take a little bit of a break. And this episode will kind of get you through that and through Halloween season. So I decided I was going to go with a spooky-ish album. And so did the fellas. And to start that off, we've got my pick first. You see it on the TV screen behind Matt. I'm going with 2001's The Sinister Urge by Mr. Rob Zombie. Second album follow-up to 98's Hellbilly Deluxe, which we have covered the album. This was done at the same time that he finished the film House of a Thousand Corpses. There's, hence where the song comes from on this album. But yeah, one of my favorite albums in the genre, honestly. It's like it's hard for me to pick between Hellbilly and this album sometimes. So yeah, Sinister Urge, Rob Zombie.
Robert. So
Robbie.
he's always got good production.
Oh yeah.
Even on this second album, you can hear it. Like all those songs are just dynamic. Some have the keyboards going on. This is like hailed as his like fan favorite album. Red.
Yeah.
And it's catchy. There's a lot of songs that are catchy. House of a Thousand Corpses. I've always looked for that song, and I never knew what album it was on.
Really?
So I always hear it in the beginning of the movie, of course. And I'm like, is that on an album? Of course it is. So this is a fun listen for me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, man.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, it like gave me a little bit of White Zombie feelings also. But yeah, man, it's Rob Zombie, doing his
Robert
thing.
L. Zombie.
Yep, El Zombie.
Yeah.
No, it was good.
There's so many people on this album too. All the guests.
Yeah.
Like I'm like,
It's got
geez.
fucking Ozzy. I was like, that's not Rob. I was like, who the fuck is that?
He's recruited so many different, drummers and guitarists and things like that. So, hearing all those sounds on this one album, I didn't know all those people were on there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is kind of that's like the only word you can use to describe it, is because it's like, wait, there was just, he had just split from White Zombie when he did Hellbilly Deluxe, so there wasn't anything too crazy about it. But then Sinister Urge comes out, and it's much more grandiose in a way. It is heralded as the fan favorite, and it's got a lot of dance influence, like Never Gonna Stop.
Yeah.
That song alone, it has just so much more groove to it. And I don't know, it's like, because it's almost, the albums are almost completely different if we're talking Hellbilly to this.
Sure.
In a way, there's like Living Dead Girl, Dragula, like those are Rob Zombie staples, that's where like he got his thing, but then you look at this and you're like, holy shit, like this. And I remember hearing Rob Zombie my entire life. And I do remember like Never Gonna Stop and stuff being on the radio for almost 10 years after this album came out. And yeah, it's just, I love the fact that it has a little more funk and like groove to it. And you start to see Rob Zombie kind of branch out a little bit more from the, basically, the horror, so much of the horror stuff. He strays a little bit more away from it in this and gets like a little bit more musical with it. And I really appreciate that about this album.
I also get like, I feel like he is for the most part kept in some way like an electronic feel, like with some songs, like Scum of the Earth.
Yeah.
Like with the intro on that, I'm like, oh, okay, like it's like got a little bit of like just a beat pattern on it, like just like kind of production wise.
Yeah.
So, and I also started like listening a little bit to his first album, and it had similar songs that started off like that. So I was like, okay, he's kind of like in a way keeping the same that same groove. So it was nice to see that. It's like he's like still branching out with like who he's working with, but at the same time his style is kind of still developing, but it's like his already. He already has his own way of how he plays.
Yeah.
How he does songs.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. He's developing a sound right here very well, too.
Yeah. And because it is showing, it's like, hey, it's not just this. It's like Rob Zombie's known, which we have discussed, like when we did when we covered Hellbilly and White Zombie, that there's nothing that sounds like this. Like not even Alice Cooper, not even Manson. Like all of those guys have their own sound, and this is really him developing a more, like giving it a little more polish and a little I don't know how to describe it, like breathing room for his like creativity to kind of go out. And I mean, to have done this and House of a Thousand Corpses like within such close proximity is fucking wild.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool.
The movie like was around the same time, right? Like,
It was done by the time, like around the same time that this was. No, it took like studios 2 or 3 years to pick it up and release it. But yeah, it was done when this was. So
that's cool. That in itself also, man, like to like be one successful with like a music career and then to still be like, hey, I'm gonna put out a movie to a song on here. And then it doesn't like become a thing until a couple years after that. People are like, this movie is actually fucking good.
Yeah.
And it becomes a cult
movie.
classic.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a great horror movie. It's like one of the best of all time, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
I am rocking the shirt. I'll show. Yeah, there you go. Boom.
Nice.
So
it's cool to see that like he kind of had that creativity like all along to kind of just keep progressing, keep doing stuff.
And it's kind of weird to look at this point in his career was kind of, really him showing that, because he had done, like, White Zombie had great singles on the radio. Hellbilly Deluxe did, but then he, at the same time, is, like, really showing exactly that. Like, I can do the best of both worlds. Let me put out an album that is going to get radio play for 10 years and a cult classic fucking horror movie at the same time, which spawned in a pretty illustrious fucking movie making career. Like, he's remade some incredible horror films. Whether people like them or not is besides the point. He did it. So shout out Rob Zombie. I think this is a really good, like, spot to look at for his career. Because, I mean, to be quite honest with you, like, some of the newer music that he's putting out, I'm not the biggest fan of. And, like, you and I have talked, like, 3 from Hell is easily the worst movie in the Firefly franchise. But, I mean, the fact that he's still putting it out and, like, selling out, like, Moda Center and stuff, like, just keep fucking killing it, Rob. I just love his music and his product a lot. So
I'd probably say the same thing for my artist too. I don't really like the new stuff that's coming out, so I always go back to the old stuff, and probably always will.
That's what made him good. That was what Rob Zombie is known for, like this album, the White Zombie, and then obviously the Hellbilly Deluxe. So it's like, it's kind of hard, especially that's like, I guess the counter argument is like, what about his new stuff? But it's like, have you heard what he did before? Like, he established the genre and, like, himself.
Yeah.
Like, in the perfect way.
Well, it's like it's just, that's what it speaks volumes to that work, from so early on. And it's like, he changed, like, he was part of the early wave of, like, industrial music in the US, basically. Like, we talked about it, like Scum of the Earth and tracks like that. Like, it flirts with being industrial, and you're like, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Trent Reznor, one of the big pullers in that. We'll talk about him a little later. But yeah, this is, again, as I've always said, 1995 to like 2004 is some of the best music that's ever been put out. And this is this is not an exception to that rule. So I'm glad that we got to talk about this.
I feel like a lot of the songs that I heard growing up in high school, Rob Zombie songs, were on the radio because he was able to get on the radio.
Yeah.
One of the rare artists in this kind of music to do that.
Like, even, like, you think about it, you're like, wow, Alice Cooper never really did. And that was like before Alice was Rob Zombie, before Rob was. And Rob Zombie comes around, and I always thought, like, can you imagine just being Alice Cooper? Be like, what the fuck? He's totally taking my shit, and he's on the radio, like. And it's like, no, you just gotta be a little creepier about it. You just gotta have a little bit. You just gotta have a sexy bassist, like, like, you just got, because it was this era, 1998, 2001, when these two albums came out, the first two Rob Zombie albums. It's like you couldn't do that today and have the same success. The late 90s, early 2000s were such a fucking hotbed for creepy shit. Like, I love, like, neo-goths and everything. Like, all of that was super huge. Rave culture was massive. And so anything that had even slight electronic stuff, but was also talking about the devil, was the hottest shit. And so, and I follow Rob Zombie on, like, all social media, and he still has fucking diehard fans, and, like, his shows, he's still just murdering. I'm like, there's some point, like, again, but he's old, like, he's an old man now, but he's still killing.
I've seen him live. He's good. About 10 years ago.
Ooh, yeah,
he was good. We've talked about that, but he puts on a great show, and to do that all these years later, he still loves what he does.
Exactly. Fuck yeah. I think we can move into top threes if we'd like.
Let's do it.
Let's do it up. Real quick, I'll start off, and I'm going to just give a little spiel about Go to California. Ooh. I think this is... I mentioned it in a recent episode, maybe even last episode. I said this song's been stuck in my head for like 4 years. This was one of the first songs I think ever got stuck in my head when I was like 10. Because just that get up, get out, get inside the outside. I don't know. It's such an earworm little thing that it got stuck in my head probably when I was like 10 years old. And I was like searching for it my whole life. And then streaming services became a thing. And I was like, that's the name of that song. Because
funny.
Like, I couldn't, just forgot everything but that. So shout out Go to California. Love that song. That's my first honorable mention. Second one for me, Demon Speeding. Wonderful song. One of my, I think I said it because there was Super Beast that I heard on a fair ride, and I've also heard Demon Speeding on a Lane County fair ride. So shout out Carnies, man. Number 3 for me, House of a Thousand Corpses. I listened to that this morning because I always listen to all the albums, and I was like, I have to watch that movie within the next week because I need to. Shout out that song. Number 2, Scum of the Earth. We gave that one a pretty good shout out earlier. That was one that I wasn't like too crazy about the entire time I've listened to this album, but this week I don't know why I was going back to that a lot. And then number 1, Feel So Numb. Oh man, what a fucking banger. Just makes you want to shake your ass. I remember learning that on guitar when I was like 14. I'm probably going to try to do that again here soon. But yeah, shout out Sinister Urge, Rob Zombie.
Oh yeah. I can go next. Honorable mention, Go to California. Me too. When I was hearing that, I was like, damn, this is pretty fucking catchy. And definitely would get stuck in my head. Number 3, Scum of the Earth.
Nice.
Talked to that one a little bit. Number 2, Dead Girl Superstar.
Wonderful.
And then my favorite was also Feel So Numb.
Nice.
Also, shout out to Bring Her Down. That one's also really good.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Kerry King did some solo work on that song, Death Girl Superstar.
Yeah. Wonderful solo. I didn't know. I actually didn't find that out until today.
Me too. I didn't know that.
I was like, holy shit, are you serious? And then I immediately went and listened to it. I was like, oh yeah, so that's Kerry.
Yeah, you can tell.
And I love Kerry. Shout out Kerry King, man. Always down to do a solo for someone else. Love his work with the Beastie Boys as well.
Honorable mention for me was Bring Her Down to Crippletown. I feel like it had the keyboard kind of dynamic sound to it. A lot more of like an operatic feel to it.
Hell yeah.
Number 3, Go to California. For me, I felt like that slowed down the album in a good way, a positive way.
Yeah.
Number 2, Demon Speeding. And then my favorite track is House of a Thousand Corpses.
Fuck yeah, baby. Shout out. Hell yeah. One of my favorite albums associated with one of my favorite movies. Check out the video that we did about House of a Thousand Corpses. Great film, great album here, and just shout out Rob Zombie in general. I feel like we just gave him a pretty good appreciation sesh there. But yeah, that's my pick for this week. 2001's The Sinister Urge by Rob Zombie. Go ahead and give it a listen, and go ahead and stick around. We're going to kind of shift directions a little bit here, but it's a spooky episode of Whatchu Spinnin'. It's Whatchu Spinnin' episode 81. For that kind of energy. Okay, let's see. Let me
flip it over.
Let me flip it over to this side. Time to move on and move backward in time. I love time traveling with you guys.
It's fun.
It's such a good time.
We'll never tell you our secret though.
It's the exact setup from Napoleon Dynamite. Plot twist. Remember the stick in the leg?
Yep.
Hell yeah. But we're going to go backwards to 1994 for the rest of the episode, actually. That's kind of cool.
That is cool.
And go with Jake's pick for this week. What do you have cooking, baby boy?
Yeah, so the first album that came out this year that we'll talk about, Portishead Dummy, came out in 94. The inside kind of has some cool pictures of the album and some songs on it, some tracks. Genre called trip hop, which is like a UK and Bristol, a genre that came out from there, which is like a merge of like hip hop, R&B, jazz, like a whole bunch of different things really get lumped up in it. But primarily like kind of hip hop. So kind of cool. When I heard this, I remember I was like blown away. I was like, it's got like some beats with like an opera singer. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Kind of gave me like Bjork vibes in a way, but like if Bjork like just wore like a flat billed hat backwards and thought like they were a gangster.
I could picture that.
So if Bjork was a swag kid from 2013.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is kind of cool.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I know it's Matt, it's your first time
Yeah.
listening to it. Dorian, I don't know about you.
Yeah, this was also my first time, but go ahead.
It was my first time. The trip hop genre was new to me. I love this album. I'm gonna try to get it on vinyl. I love her
Nice.
voice. Reminded me of a couple songs did of Tori Amos.
Yes.
Especially
Fuck yeah.
Biscuit. That song, I could feel her voice in that.
Nice.
So I like the good female vocals on any album. So they kind of just brought that genre to the U.S. too a little bit because you said it was like a Bristol sound, and they made it their own. And I need to dive into more of their catalog and see what they got.
Yeah, definitely. My first introduction to this as well. It was one because the book it's so funny that we use it to hold up my laptop so we have a better camera angle. But that book has this in it because I was going through all the albums that when I got it, one of the first things I did was go through a couple eras, So I went through all the ones that came out in the 90s, and this just keeps popping up in a bunch of things that I read. Portishead Dummy, and I'm like, it's one of those things where like I thought they were something completely different.
Me too.
And so
Totally different.
yeah. This was one, I think it was one of the questions that we did a while back, and Jake said this is something that you were trying to get on vinyl. And I was like, okay. And because you said it was electronic, and I was like, what? Wait, what? Because Portishead made me think of like Buckethead, so then like made me think of something.
I was thinking like Skinny Puppy or like Industrialist.
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that. But this is basically all that to say, this is completely fucking different than what I thought it was in the best way possible. And I was looking for it because I kind of, like I said last episode, I was just going to buy this and that was going to be my exposure to it. I was going to do that trick. And so I was just going to buy it on vinyl and then just have that be my introduction to it. Still going to get it, as you said, Matt, but man, I love getting thrown for a loop like that and having it be something that I'm like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Fucking weird ass. It's a weird time for it to come out because it is Bjork. Like, you said it, it's like Bjork, she sounds like Tori Amos, and it's like, it just again makes you realize like the fuck, like 1994, we talked about 1995 for a whole episode. Like they were just letting anything go, man. Like people were just
very creative with what they were doing.
I love it. And you read the backstory on this, and I don't know any names or anything. I just read all of this today. I see you have something pulled up.
Yeah.
Would you like to jump in here just in
go ahead.
case? Okay. But there was, from my understanding, there was a friend that came in. So there was two people making music or something, and then a third friend came in and was like, have you guys ever heard of a fucking theremin and all these weird ass instruments? And then,
Oh, cool. I didn't see that part.
yeah, so like there was, I don't know, I think it was like the singer and the guitarist were doing stuff, and then another person came in and was like, hey, you ever play these weird ass instruments? What if we did this? And then they just did a lot of experimental ways of recording and mastering it. And so the backstory is super weird. And it's like, yeah, of course that would happen in a UK apartment because they're like recording. It's literally like they were recording these songs in a kitchen.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It wasn't digital at all from what I read.
Yeah.
They were sampling records and then making their own music and tying it together. And how creative is that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw Weather Report was an album they sampled. Just
Yeah.
what?
Like, and as soon as you hear that, you're like, okay, let me try to hear the samples. And then they do it in such a way and tie it in with their own stuff that you can't really pick it out. And that really shows the genius behind this. And it's like, yeah, no shit, this is voted like one of the best electronic albums of all time. Like, because when you hear the backstory and the just how unique that is, like no one ever I've never heard anybody doing that kind of shit.
No.
So yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool, like the process they did with this.
Yeah.
And it really also, like, there's a couple, like 3 or 4 big albums in that genre, trip hop, and this is definitely up there as probably like what defines the genre. And it's like has a lot of hip hop elements. It's not like rapping per se, but they like sample. They like make beats off of it in a way.
There's scratching. There's
Yeah,
like
there's-
fading
yeah.
and shit. Yeah.
Like the first song that we listened to, it has like a whirling kind of like and scratching in between also like the record. So yeah, they were very like practical and hands on with how they were like making this. It was like very like just sampling and looping, and it was fucking awesome what they were doing, and it was very like out there, very creative for this time.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, how did you stumble upon
Yeah.
this band?
I heard this a couple, like maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I think I don't remember where, but I stumbled across it through like my Spotify. It just came up. And I had always heard of the name Portishead, and I had seen like at record stores like the label there, but it was always empty. So I'm like, okay, not something I was looking for, but it just came up out of nowhere, and I heard Glory Box off of it.
Ooh.
And I was like, holy shit, this is good. And I saw they had like just everything was really good, and a lot of people listened to it. So I was like, let me give it a listen, and I did. And I mean, the rest is there. And I went out to look for it. I've been looking for this for a while. A lot of the stores, sometimes they'd have it, and I'd be like, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
Never picked it up. And finally had to this time. But yeah, it's been there for a while, and it's definitely a good one to listen to.
Yeah.
It throws you for a loop, like you guys said. And it's very creative, what they were doing, and everything about it, from the lyrics, the production on it. Apparently they made a movie off of it too, I saw.
Okay.
And that's what like isn't the album cover like a still from that or something? I
Yeah.
I read about that, and I didn't look into that movie at all, but
Me neither.
you know, we love a good music tied movie
A musical.
around here.
Yeah. So I was like, like, what weren't these guys doing? You
Yeah.
know? Like, so, yeah, it was wild. It was crazy how I stumbled upon it. But yeah, I'm glad I could bring it up because it had elements of spooky, I feel like.
Yeah.
So,
It does. It's got that raw sound. They even recorded some of their stuff out of a broken amplifier. It's like,
that's cool.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and you hear it, and it does have even, you know, we listen to it on Spotify. I don't own it. It has like the pops and like crackles and stuff of like old shitty record players and like broken speakers. So I can totally, as soon as you said broken amplifier, I was like, oh yeah, of course they did. Like, man, like again, just how the fuck do you think of that?
Right? Yeah. Just going in the studio or wherever you're recording and just trying out new things.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun.
Yeah, it's just experiment, and it's I noticed because I always look at like the personnel and see because on Wikipedia, because I always go through the pages. I go to the personnel to see if anyone like featured or whatever, and you look at this and it's like guitar for songs 1, 3, 5, and it's like, but then everybody's switching stuff. It felt like everybody was playing everything. It seemed like at some point during the recording process, which is. That just, as you said, that just has to be so much fun. Yeah, fucking, we're gonna play with the slide whistle today and record it through a microphone that's stuffed in a toilet. Okay,
Yeah.
and 1, 2, 3. Like,
It's cool how like stuff like this too comes to like your area, to America. And,
Yeah.
because it's like it's Bristol. Like this is just some small town and a different country, and like you hear this and it's like. Okay, sure, but like back then, definitely how it would have gotten around, how people would have found out about it.
Yeah.
Like they their handwriting instead of looking like a H for hip hop looks like T, and like they end up getting this or some shit, like it's
yeah.
so it's cool. It's cool with that too, how like people got into it. But yeah, it's been praised a lot, surprisingly. Like I didn't know that until I was looking into it.
Yeah.
Like it's been praised so much, and it's considered one of the best in that genre. So it's like,
Yeah.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. Our
in the
Bible.
book.
Yeah, it is our Bible.
Fuck yeah. Shall we? What are we thinking?
Dive on in.
Any closing arguments?
I really like their sound.
Me too.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's different. It doesn't sound like anything in that 94 era.
No. And they're really trying, like, as you said, like, it sounds, we could sit here and say it sounds like X, it sounds like Y, almost, because it has elements of so much going on in it. Like Jake said, you're like, it's got some jazz, but then she's got like a very operatic voice. So there's like the Amos comparisons coming in. But in and of itself, there's nothing that I've heard that sounds like this. And I want to kind of listen to other stuff that they've done. I am nervous too, but because I might. It's kind of like your thing with the Grateful Dead, Matt, where you're like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to become the biggest Deadhead. I don't want to become the biggest Portishead head of all time. So I'm gonna be I'm gonna be careful about it.
Yeah, I haven't heard their other things, but I'm sure it's good. One that we didn't talk about, Rhodes.
Oh my god.
Really, really like Rhodes when I stumbled upon this. Like, I had to listen to the full album when I discovered it, and I did, and it made me fall in love with it. That's my honorable mention.
Nice segue. Hold on. Nice segue.
You did that. I just copied you. I'm like, ooh, I like that. Mental notes. Number 3, Strangers. That one's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just every song is different too. Every song is very different when you listen to it. Especially for the first time, that's kind of the spooky element of it. It's like the first song just throws you such of a loop that you're like, what the fuck is next? Like, how could it be different? And it is. Number 2, Sour Times, and number 1, Mysterons.
Nice. Excellent. Honorable mention for me, Mysterons, and Strangers is my other one. Number 3 for me is Rhodes, but by golly, did it almost turn into number 1. Number 2 for me, It's a Fire. That was kind of like almost brings a tear to your eye, that one, for some reason for me. And the number 1, Biscuit.
Nice.
Yeah, the Tory vibe is very strong there, but just outside of that, and it being at the end of the album is kind of like a nice touch to it when you're listening to it, and that comes out and you're like, oh, kind of perks your ear up. But yeah, love this album. Definitely going to try getting my hands on it. Thanks for bringing this up. I've saved a good amount of stuff to playlists already. So
yeah, Biscuit was a great way to end this album. That was my honorable mention.
Nice.
Number 3, It Could Be Sweet. I like that track. A little bit different. Number 2, Wandering Star. And then my favorite track was Strangers.
Wonderful.
I feel like that.
I knew you would say that.
That just has the vibe for me.
It does, yeah.
My vibe.
Hell yeah. Love it, love it, love it. That was our second album for today's content. That's Jake's pick from 1994, Dummy by Portishead. Very interesting album. Give it a listen. If you've never heard it and you have heard of Portishead, which I'm sure you have, go ahead and give it a listen. You will love it. Anyway, it's Whatchu Spinnin' episode 81. Stick around. We're going to put a big old fat bow on this biatch and send it to the moon with Matt's pick. Stick around. I am the god of fuck. It makes me that song makes me think of Dead Kennedys. That's why I put that up there. And I don't know why, it just makes me think of fucking Jello Biafra. But anyway, anywho, you know what? We started off talking about one of my favorite artists in Rob Zombie. Then we got to be introduced to an album that I'm just gonna love for the rest of my life probably. And now we get to talk about, again, one of my favorite artists. I am super stoked that we get to talk about this with Matt's pick for this week from 1994.
Yes, found this up at Music Millennia a few weeks ago, going with Marilyn Manson's, I guess, first album, Portrait of an American Family. Interesting backstory. Lots of different things went on during the recording process for this album. It was essentially re-recorded because they didn't like the first version of it, and that's where Trent Reznor came into play, which you can kind of feel that when you hear this album. You hear that industrial kind of Trent sound, but you also hear what Manson's doing on his own with his vocals, with his lyrics that are... I think his lyrics early on in his career are a little bit better than they are now. Like, he actually thought about what he was writing. He was a journalist when he first started. He was a music journalist when he first started getting into music in general. So he had that kind of vibe. I brought his book with me because it kind of ties into that a little bit. But this album is unique for 94. Like, there wasn't a lot that sounded like this. It was almost scary in a sense. The album cover alone is a little disturbing.
Yeah.
And the way they presented themselves on stage, and that's how they got their fan base, doing crazy stage shows. You know, I won't even go into the details, but there was a lot going on stage that was like, what is going on? Yeah. So Manson definitely set the tone, and there's nobody else like him, honestly. What did you guys think of this album?
Ooh, do you want to go, or I'll dive in?
I have heard the name Marilyn Manson forever.
Right.
I've never wanted to listen to his music. I guess maybe not wanted isn't the good way to put it. I've never seeked out to listen to his music. But hearing this, I kind of get the appeal. Like it's very, at some points, in your face lyrically. The play style of this, like how they're playing, it feels, for the most part, pretty polished. Especially starting off. So I like it kind of, in a way, wants me to listen to his other stuff. But I've never kind of seen the appeal. So it's not necessarily my thing a whole lot, but it's a solid album as is. Like listening to it, Cyclops was good. Lunchbox fucking ruled.
Yeah,
that was a good song. So I was like going through this, listening to it, and I'm like, should I like this? Do I like this? I'm like, fuck, that's a good song. Fuck, I kind of
yeah.
it kind of rules. But it's crazy to me, like reading up on it, all the backstory, and they pretty much did a whole new sound to this album when they did it. Like they scrapped the first one and almost in a way redid a full fucking thing. Which is crazy. It shows a lot of commitment to what they were doing, and I can admire that. But yeah, it's a good listen.
I think there's a lot of people too that have that same opinion. Like, I don't seek to listen out to Marilyn Manson. A lot of people I know don't, and I think it's just one of those things. Like, you either like them or you don't.
Yeah,
you know, and it's not a bad thing.
No,
it's just how it is.
Certainly not. And you know, I remember going through that exact same thing I was doing anything my mom didn't want me to do, and so this was at the top of the list. Was listening to this shit, but I was like, "Ooh, I don't know." I was like, "I'm really scared that I was like more, but like even more aggressive than what you're talking about." I was like, like nervous that I was liking it, and I think that says something about it as an art piece, whether no matter what it is, and I think it's something. I think music kind of needed this, needed something like this. Again, it's 1994, so again, we were just doing whatever the fuck we wanted. Marilyn Manson did exactly that. The stage shows were crazy. He was packing out 300 person rooms in South Florida with this group, and then caught the eye of Trent Reznor, and that the rest is essentially history. And he's Marilyn Manson. He's got, the stories are endless, of the antics and everything. But when you boil it, when you get down to it, I have the same exact thing with him that I do with Rob Zombie, where I'm like, not many people sound like this. This was such an interesting part in music for me, and because it's like I always say, it was such an interesting time. They were doing whatever they wanted in the mid 90s. And there's a couple of examples. There's a couple of huge examples of that. You've got the rap music that was coming out at the time. And then you have these, the weird shock rock industrial shit that was going on with, the Zombie, the Manson, all that stuff. And this is a huge piece of that, Yeah,
definitely.
And his albums are spooky. I didn't hear this album until my mid-20s.
Oh, wow.
And I listened to Manson in high school. The first album that I listened to was the one that had the popular reversion of the Eurythmics song. That Smells Like Children.
Yeah.
Have you listened to that album?
Yeah. It's all covers.
Mostly, but there's some creepy shit on there. I remember getting really stoned with friends in high school and just sitting there listening to this and freaking ourselves out.
Yeah.
It was scary music back then.
Yeah.
And this album does get that vibe a little bit, but I think he does it well, because you could try to make an album like this and do it horribly wrong. I think having Reznor re-record it helped a lot. This isn't one of the best albums he has, but it's one of my favorites just because of the sound. Is just so different for 94. It's that shock rock in your face. And again, lyrically, he just says some cool shit that made a lot of sense back then and still does today.
Yeah.
He sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
He was very intentional. This is he was wanting to in a way freak you out.
Oh, yeah.
Alter your point of view on some things. Specifically for a debut, this being your starting off, they had different ideas for the cover, for the songs, for the tracks, for everything. So if they didn't like it the first time it came out, they wanted it to be how they wanted, which is why they redid it. So it was very intentional why they were doing it. And that's like their whole spiel, like with the album, with their like bandmates, like their names, everything. Like that's the whole thing.
Madonna, Wayne Gacy. Like,
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, right.
But that's like the whole appeal of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, like it's cool. I get it.
Yeah, it's like Slipknot would go on to do something very similar. It was kind of a precursor to what would come.
Yeah, Slipknot definitely put it up a notch.
Yeah, right. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff about this album. Like you said, for it being a debut and for what the music is, it's like, wow, there's actually a lot of polish. Like the bass grooves on this are really well done. The drums are mastered almost perfectly, which is insane. Especially for just when you read the backstory, like the fact that it sounds as good as it does is bizarre almost. And one thing that I noticed, because, you and I were talking, because they had this album and Lest We Forget, which is his best of, that was put out in, I think, 2006. And it's like, I was telling you, I was like, I'm almost down to get that. Like, I usually don't like getting greatest hits albums on vinyl, but that's a phenomenal fucking best of. And Get Your Gun and Lunchbox are like the only two songs from this on it. And so you can kind of tell, like, he kind of scraps a lot of the sound off of this before he moves on in his career. And you hear, when you're listening to this cover to cover, you hear Lunchbox, you're like, there's it. That's a good one. And then you hear Get Your Gun and you're like, oh, okay. Like, and if you were to continue to listening and you go to like Antichrist Superstar and everything, you can feel him picking up the pieces of his sound in a sense. Kind of like we were talking with Hellbilly and Sinister Urge. There's very obvious pieces on this album that you're like, oh, he figured it out with those two. And that's what he built his sound off of going forward. So I like that about
cool.
it.
Yeah.
And speaking of the bass and the drum, the bass player was so strung out all the time. He got fired.
Yeah.
He brought in Twiggy, but Twiggy only got credit for like a little. It says bass tendencies on the back of the album.
Yeah.
It's funny. And then the drumming, I guess they kind of scrapped the original drumming and brought in some sort of a drum machine.
Yeah.
Like Reznor brought that in with one of his bandmates and threw that on the album instead.
That's
so
right.
they really re-scrapped this album. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what the first version sounds like,
Yeah.
Are they the same songs? Is it the same vibe? What's going on? But
Right.
I'm glad that Trent did this and they set the tone and the vibe for the mid-90s and beyond.
Yeah. Those first couple of tours with 9 Inch Nails and Manson would have been insane.
Yeah.
And then they went up and it was Manson so he toured after this. They toured with 9 Inch Nails. The next year, the year after, they toured with Korn in support of Danzig.
Oh, dude.
That would have been fucking crazy in 95.
Oh, dude, the prime.
But just wonderful stuff. I'm glad that we got to talk about this, and it is it's perfect for this time of year. And it is one that, as you said, and as we've kind of discussed, it's like, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but the people that love it fucking love it. Like, it's a whole
that's what I think is cool about it, is that there's a niche and a fan base for everything, no matter what you're into. And on the opposite side, this band gets so much shit the media, from news, everything. Like, it's like, and every album cover that I see or every fucking track, I'm like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, you're like, oh, goddamn.
But that's their whole thing. It's like wanting to kind of be like that front face of, and I wouldn't really know a whole lot of bands that put it up to this and be this mainstream. Because there's some weird shit in music, especially in, I guess you could say in metal, could be some, or in rock. But to be like this mainstream, and also to be this so critical and a critical point, but still be successful off of it, and sell out shows and keep producing albums
or
and
get
stuff.
banned in a state. That's
like
a huge influence. Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, damn, they were doing it. They didn't care. They're just fucking, setting their mark in music and everything.
It'd be one thing if this was if we were just covering this to talk about the antics of it, but it's no, the music behind it was such a staple of the rest of the 90s and early 2000s. You know, like Beautiful People was everywhere. I mean, different album, but like I said, like Lunchbox was huge too.
Yep.
For years and years. And yeah, it's when you're being that out there, and like you said, it's like, how can it be that controversial but be so accepted to where all of these songs have had massive radio play, or you know, and it's like, yeah, everybody knows the name Marilyn Manson, and it's like, he did it. Like,
Yeah.
exactly as you said in the beginning. This was all intentional. Reznor even said that, talking about it. He's like, yeah, Marilyn Manson, everything that he's ever done, he knew exactly what he was doing. He's like, it was all planned. Like, yeah, he's doing everything to piss you off, and it's working. Like, essentially.
It is working. Yeah.
Which rage bait, like at the earliest form and the best, probably.
And that really says something, because it was, you know, you had the Elvises, you had the Jim Morrisons and everything, like all of these, you had controversial figures throughout music. And it, you know, then the more niche stuff, you get like Gigi Allen and everything that not everybody knows about. But Marilyn Manson's like the one that is like the one that did the most bizarre shit that is the most popular outside of like Ozzy Osbourne. And that's just hats off to him. You know what? Like, and it is music that I go through at least once a year. I start cranking and putting on some Marilyn Manson for like a day or two, and then I'm like, yeah, it's just I'll always have an appreciation for his music. But as you kind of said earlier, there's like a good 4-album run that he has, and then the rest,
and then it kind of just disappears.
Yeah.
I did like the album just because it has a good saying that I should probably do more in my life, but it says, "You cannot sedate all the things you hate."
There you go. I love that.
I think that's pretty good coming from Manson.
Yeah. I love that.
Nice. I like the definitely spooky vibes. Kind of reading up on it, the how they recorded at like initially, I think, well, it's like whatever, but like the spooky, like paranormal shit going on. If you guys looked into it, it was like, okay, cool. Like they, like it has that vibe, and very much so for what they were doing at the time. With their shows, crazy ass fucking things going on. So in all that sense, like the build up to it is what kind of caught my attention about it. It was like, okay, it wasn't just in the music, like they were doing this, like this is what, you know, this is their whole shtick.
Yeah.
Because I thought they recorded at that house, the Sharon Tate murder house.
That's what they said, and that was kind of what Reznor, that was the main thing that he was referencing when I said that. Because Reznor was interviewed about it, and he's like, I didn't do that on purpose. That was all Marilyn. He's like, that was all Manson. He's like, I had nothing to do with that. He did that and knew exactly what the fuck he was doing. So talk to him, basically, was like kind of the interview that I was reading. And he was like, yeah, no, that was all him, and I wouldn't have done it for that purpose. But then, a little side story, there's like rumor that he had the door of the house when they destroyed it. Yeah. He had the door of the house taken, Trent Reznor did, and put it on his studio in New Orleans. So maybe he had a little more to do with it than he's given off. You're not so fucking slick, Trent. But yeah, that it's like, of course, you know, it's just another one of those things. You're like, a fucking course they did. Yep. And another shout out, because you were talking about like the spooky stuff. The original album, and we kind of touched on this. The original album cover was going to be a John Wayne Gacy painting of a clown.
Oh, okay.
They ended up not using it. But a band did, and I recommend listening to this album, Acid Bath. They did an album called When the Kite String Pops, and they used that same painting as the album cover.
Oh, okay.
Good old sludge metal, doom metal, whatever that genre is. It's pretty fucking good. The guy's got a hell of a voice. Listen to that. But I was reading that. I was like, oh, no fucking way. Because I was like, oh, I listened to that album. I was like hell into that album like 2 years ago. I was like, no shit, they almost used that. So
sludge metal, that's such a good, that's a good genre.
We love it. But yeah, man, Marilyn Manson.
They did use a lot of horror movie samples too, not horror movie, but movie samples in general. John Waters films, Twin Peaks isn't wrapped in plastic, so that was cool.
They like thanked John Waters on the album too, or like on the liner notes or something. That's funny. I love it.
Well, cool. I'm glad you guys dug it a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely not for everybody, but it's definitely got that sound that 94 didn't have.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Music needed a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfectly said. They needed a villain.
Exactly. Well, let's top 3 it up, eh?
Let's do it. Honorable mention for me was My Monkey, just because the voice, the vocal rendition there is funny. Number 3, Get Your Gun. 2, Organ Grinder. And then number 1 was Wrapped in Plastic. Just love that song. It has a lot of different catchy lyrics and just good.
Nice. Honorable mentions for me, Cake and Sodomy. Just, I am the god of fuck is such a Marilyn Manson line. Like, that's another one that you're like, yeah, of course he said that. Of course he said that and then had the career he did. Like, there's a lot of things, like I said, there's a lot of things on this album that you can point back to and be like, yeah, of course. It all makes sense. Number 2 for me was Cyclops. Really liked that one. It had like a nice little groove to it. Number 3 for me was Lunchbox. I do have the two biggest songs in my top 3, but I've just loved them forever. Number 3 was Lunchbox, and that was like one of the last Marilyn Manson songs that I got super into, and that was only recently this summer. Number 2 for me, Organ Grinder, same exact reason. Just love that song. And then number 1, Get Your Gun. The fucking chorus to that song is so good. And yeah, I love the way that it ends just with him screaming, "Get!" I don't know why. I'm just like, fuck yeah.
One of the stronger lyrical songs on the album.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's in my top 3. First, my honorable mention was Snake Eyes and Sissies. Like that one a little bit towards the end of the album. Number 3, Lunchbox.
Nice.
Number 2, Wrapped in Plastic. That one was good. And then Lunchbox number 1 for sure. That one I caught my ear first thing when I heard it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Wonderful. Glad you were able to find something that you liked about it.
Oh yeah, I always like the reading up on it.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's kind of something I'll do every morning before the pod. Is just kind of look into it a little bit more, the backstory. So a lot of cool listens on this, and a lot of cool reading notes on it.
Yeah, on all 3 albums, I had a good time reading into all this stuff. You know, I knew most about Sinister Urge, obviously, but reading up on this was super fun. Portishead, like all of that stuff. I don't even think I finished the article. It was so fucking long. Like I was like, this is an insane Wikipedia article. I'm gonna come back to this. But yeah. Well, that was 1994's Portrait of an American Family by Marilyn Manson, the debut of what would go on to be a controversial, illustrious, hell of a career, honestly. Hats off to him as well. That's going to wrap up our spooky episode of Whatchu Spinnin', episode 81 here. We'll be right back to go into everybody's favorite part, which is letting you know what's coming next time. Please stick around. It's Whatchu Spinnin'. We ready, fellas?
Yeah.
Let me flip back over.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay. Hey, it's Whatchu Spinnin', episode 81. We are at the end, and boy, has it been so much fun.
It's been kind of scary.
It's been a little spooky. I almost had to hold your hand at one point. I was a little touch and go there for a second. But we made it through. We talked about some great music, some new stuff, some old stuff, some well-loved stuff, and everything in between. And now the fun begins. Will someone bring up hip-hop? Will someone touch a genre that they've personally never brought up? Or will some of us do exactly what we always do? We'll figure it out here in a couple minutes. It's the end of the episode, so we go in the order that we just spoke in, which means I'm up first. A little backstory. I was going to do this album. I was going to do that album. But then I remembered we're going to be apart for a while. And I hate to do it to you guys, but bringing up like an alternative metal pick that I discovered this summer, I think you guys will really, really appreciate it, especially given all the time we're going to take. Loath's 2021 album, I Let It In and It Took Everything. I've mentioned it a handful of times on here as stuff I've been listening to / picking up. Just a phenomenal album, and I think we will all find something different to love about it. So, Loathe.
Nice. I've seen that come up in our songs that we listen to. Yeah, our blend. And I've listened to one or two. It's good.
Oh yeah. I tried to poison Matt. I poisoned Matt a little bit with it when he was here. I was like,
Nice.
"Here, sit down." I was like, listen.
Listen and like this. 'Cause, like, I don't know. 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 Like, I don't know.
With that being said, then since it will be a little bit of a grind for these albums, I'll bring up. It is Peanut Butter Wolf. My Vinyl Weighs a Ton. Came out in what year is it? I want to say early 90s. Let me look it up real quick.
Wonderful.
Not early 90s. Sorry. Oh my god. I guess I should have looked it up. '99.
Oh,
I knew it was the '90s, but '99.
wonderful.
Vinyl Weighs a Ton.
I love that.
I'm sticking with the 90s,
Nice.
and I feel like it's been a while since we talked about Maynard.
Ooh.
So we're bringing up the second album, Undertow by Tool.
Nice.
Let's go.
Probably my favorite album.
What's up with the pigs, man?
Classic Jake. Always wants
Every
to know what's up with the
time.
pigs. Always wants to
pig.
know. Oh, fucking Undertow, Matt. I'm gonna fucking get you. One of the albums I almost brought up Murder, so glad we were both in the Maynard sphere. Fuck yes, dude. I'm so stoked. This is gonna be great to listen to for a little bit of time, and this is gonna be great to fucking talk about. We got Loathe, we got Tool, we got Peanut Butter Wolf, and some friends, if I do remember correctly. Last time I listened to that, it's been a while for me. But hell yeah, brethren. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah. This has been Whatchu Spinnin. Thanks for listening. We will be back mid-November. We're going to take a little time off. But yeah, support your local artists, whether that's a painter, a musician, or, the crazy guy on the corner dancing his ass off. Support your local record store. Most importantly, be a friend. Tell a friend about the podcast. We are everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere you can find it. Follow us on Instagram at Whatchu Spinnin. Be kind to each other. Listen to new music and eat some damn good food. Go ahead and stay warm and stay dry. It's about to get real chilly. It's Whatchu Spinnin, episode 81. Peace out.